Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, October 11th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Iowa game is in 11 days, the game against Michigan in 46 days. That Iowa game will kick off at noon. Fox just announced that the Buckeyes and Hawkeyes will be a big noon kickoff for October 22nd. That means we have likely seen the last primetime regular season game for the Buckeyes this fall. Penn State has not officially been announced. It's going to be a Fox game, so probably at noon. And once you get into November, they do not allow teams to schedule night games without the express permission of both teams, which visiting teams almost never approve of. So there you go. Probably the last primetime game already in the rearview mirror for Ohio State, at least as far as the regular season goes this year. Something that's a little less certain than that is how the Big Ten season is actually going to play out. The race for the East is shaping up as a three-team battle between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and the West is... Well, the West has a great personality. Someone else who has a great personality, Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. He's my guest this morning. Tony, thanks for being here.
Tom, did you just call me the Big Ten West?
No, I'm just saying, let's put it this way. I meant the great personality thing in two different ways there, and you can take that however you want to. So, yeah, it is, Tony, I would never call you the Big Ten West. I've said a lot of mean things about you over the years. I would never call you the Big Ten West.
Fair.
The Big Ten West is a small part of what has been a crazy college football season so far. It feels if Missouri had just finished the win over Georgia, if Texas A&M or Texas had finished the win over Alabama, this would start to be, a lot more people would be comparing this to 2007, which is something I never thought we'd really see again. We are heading into the second ever weekend with three different matchups of teams with records of 5-0 or better. That is Penn State and Michigan, Alabama facing Tennessee, Oklahoma State, and TCU. So those are 6 of 15 remaining unbeaten teams. Okay, that's 6. I will also spot you, Tony, Georgia and Ohio State. So that's 8 of 15 unbeaten teams. Can you name the other 7 unbeaten teams right now in FBS football? There's some easy ones that are sort of the free spaces, and then it gets weird towards the end.
UCLA and USC.
Correct.
And I think that's it. No, no, and all of FBS. So you're talking the group of 5 as well.
Yes, I will tell you there are 3 more Power 5 teams. One of which has made the college football playoff.
Clemson.
Yes.
And I think that's it.
Clemson is not the only unbeaten ACC team. I will spot you that as well.
The other one is, it's not North Carolina State. It's not North Carolina. We know it's not Notre Dame. Is it? Well, it's not Boston College. Tom, I'm really trying not to just cheat and look. I'm trying to do this for real. Nice try. Syracuse.
Syracuse, yes.
As you say it, you people say it, Syracuse. My apologies. I'm missing
You're missing one team from the SEC and then 2 group of 5 teams.
Okay, the team from the SEC has to be from the no. It's not Vanderbilt. And is it, Tom? Nobody's beaten Ole Miss yet.
No one has beaten Ole Miss yet. There you go. You've gotten all 5 Power 5 teams. 2 group of 5 teams left. One of them is not eligible for a bowl game this year.
James Madison.
James Madison, correct.
Ranked this week.
Number 25, James Madison, not eligible for a bowl game because it's their first year in FBS. Let me just throw this out to you, NCAA. Just give them a waiver. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They didn't move up because they were going to be good this year. They moved up because they were moving up. Don't be idiots. Win yourself some free PR. Give them a waiver so they can go to a bowl game. All right, last one, Tony.
Is it the same conference?
That's going to involve me remembering which conference James Madison. I believe James Madison is in CUSA. Is James Madison in CUSA or the Sun Belt? It is a Sun Belt team that is left.
How about the team that is always seemingly like undefeated until they play somebody late? I'll say Coastal Georgia? Coastal Georgia? No. Coastal Carolina?
Coastal Carolina, you did it. Wow, that is tremendous. Oh, the balloons and confetti I rigged in your ceiling didn't fall. Well, that's too bad. That was a tremendous effort. Yeah, there are some weird ones in there. And 15 unbeaten teams this year feels like a lot for this time of year. We're basically halfway through the regular season. What's interesting to me though is there are multiple unbeaten teams in each of the Power 5 conferences right now. And a bunch of them are going to play each other this weekend, so that's obviously going to knock that number down quite a bit from 15 soon, but having that many right now sort of increases the chances we're going to have, at least 3 to 4 Power 5 conference champions with one loss or less. And, I know, everyone's talking about the chances of a 1 or 2 loss non-champion Georgia or Alabama possibly making the playoffs, or the loser of the Ohio State Michigan game maybe making it. But, at some point, if you end up with that many one-loss conference champions, presumably that makes that less likely. So that makes it even more important to actually win those conferences this year. So let's talk about where things stand right now in the Big Ten. It is like, in the East, it feels like a 3-team race between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. There's kind of a big gap down to the rest of that division. And those are 3 teams who have not really been tested yet, if you ask me. Which unit among those teams, Penn State offense or Michigan defense or whatever, which one do you think we know the most about, that this is definitely a very good unit? And which do we think is still the biggest question mark of those 6 potential units?
I think the best unit of those 3 teams is the Ohio State offense, because I think we've seen enough of it from last year, and then it's picked up essentially where it left off last year. And they've done it against many different teams. Now, they haven't really faced anybody this year defensively. You could throw Notre Dame in there, I guess, as having a pulse, Wisconsin, I guess. So I think they are the most proven of the units, because you look at who the other teams have played, Michigan and Penn State, and you look at their offense and defense. None of them stand as tall as the Ohio State offense. Now, if you're asking the most unproven or the least proven of these 6 units, I might go with the Ohio State defense. And I will go with the Ohio State defense, because Michigan has faced Maryland's passing game. Ohio State really has faced no passing games. Michigan hasn't really faced a running game. Penn State's defense, I think, has been, while they're giving up a bunch of pass yards, like you look at their pass efficiency in the Big Ten and their completion percentage, they're giving up under 50% completion percentage. They're like 2nd or 3rd in the conference in yards per attempt defensively. So I don't care if they're like 14th in the Big Ten in yards allowed, or wherever they are, like bottom 3rd. I think they've got a secondary that everybody likes. I just don't know that we've seen anybody really test Ohio State. I don't know that we've seen anybody with the capability of testing Ohio State's defense. So I think they're the most proven on offense, maybe the least proven on defense, and that's a product of their schedule more than, of course, anything else.
I think there's an argument for Penn State's defense as the least proven there as well, because they got Auburn in a game where Auburn, TJ Finley got hurt like halfway through the game, and they really functionally didn't have any kind of an offense in the second half of that game. I guess Purdue week 1 at Purdue, that's the best team that they've faced, and I guess that's better than anyone Ohio State's faced, but
they gave up 31.
They gave up 31, which is sort of, I think there's an argument to be made for Penn State's defense as the least proven, but they will have a chance to prove themselves this weekend against Michigan. And, you're going to think we're going to know a lot more about not only the Penn State defense, but the whole Big Ten East race after that game. We just did a deep dive on Michigan on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed with our Michigan Monday episode. You can find that wherever you're listening to this. Just search Buckeye Weekly to find that. But Tony, how do you see that game playing out this weekend? Because, we did half an hour on Michigan, and we rewatch Michigan every week, and it's still like, I feel like even though we've watched every snap of every Michigan game, there's still things that I would like to see Michigan do that I haven't really seen them do yet this year.
Yeah, I have concerns about the Michigan pass defense, and they really haven't faced anybody that can test them. Maryland, I thought, would do more than they did, And since they didn't, let's credit Michigan's defense. I was very unimpressed with the ability of the Maryland wide receivers to get open. And of course, they lost Raheem Jarrett at some point in that game to that hindered them as well. But the Penn State passing game has potential, but it is so up and down, and they don't have a ton of big plays right now. Sean Clifford, you know what you're going to get, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. He has the ability to extend plays, which, with this Michigan defense, maybe he can get lost in there and can create some plays on it with his legs. And so I like the Penn State offense against Michigan because we've seen lesser offenses and similar offenses have some success. The only problem is it's never sustained. It's for like 2 quarters, and then they get to halftime, and then the adjustments get made, and the 200 yards that you put up in the first half becomes 46 yards in the second half, and that's it, and you just get suffocated. So I'll be interested to see if Penn State can put 4 quarters together offensively. Nobody's really done that yet, and so I think that's going to be key to maybe have an approach for the first half and have an approach for the second half. The Michigan offense, I think J.J. McCarthy is loaded with potential. Blake Corum is as good as anybody in the Big Ten, so there's going to be certainly some points there for Michigan. I just don't know how much Penn State can score. I don't know how much Michigan can score. So I see the winner being low 30s, high 20s to low 20s, high teens, but that's giving, I think, maybe too much credit to these defenses. I don't know. That's the problem with this game when both offenses have their flaws, and I think the Penn State secondary is a decent matchup for Michigan. Like, I think they've got a good corner in Joey Porter Jr., good safety, and so they can make life difficult. I still think Michigan's going to win. I think this is a game in the fourth quarter. And Tom, you give me James Franklin in the fourth quarter in a 1-score game, I like my chances.
Yeah, it is. This is going to be. It feels like it will be a game in the fourth quarter. I think Michigan might win by more than 1 score. Not a ton, but 10, 14 points, something like that, something in that range. But yeah, it does feel like this is going to be quite a battle. And if this is a 3-team round robin between Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, each one of them plays one of those games at home and one of those games on the road as this shakes out. So Game 1 is this weekend. Game 2 is Halloween weekend, Ohio State at Penn State. And then Game 3, of course, Thanksgiving weekend when Michigan comes to Columbus. So those are the good teams in the conference. Tony, let's talk about the West. We have, let's see, a team that fired its head coach less than a month ago is tied for first place with a team that's pretty concerned it might lose its head coach to Louisville, and a team that is quite literally Illinois. And then Northwestern, which is 1-5 on the season, is tied with the teams who were picked first and second in the preseason conference poll. So, Tony, I'm going to ask this knowing that the ACC Coastal is still a thing. Tony, is this the dumbest division in college football this season?
Yes. And not only is Illinois literally Illinois, they are figuratively Illinois. And when you are both literally and figuratively something, that is way too much. And they are way too much Illinois. And I'm looking through this, and I won't be surprised to see any of these teams win the division, except for Northwestern. Like that anybody else can win this, and I'd be like, well, none of it makes sense, but that doesn't shock me. Northwestern winning it would be very, very, very surprising. I mean, you talk about Nebraska firing their coach, like Wisconsin fired their coach, and they could very well end up in the Big Ten championship game when you look at what they have and their crossover that they have left. Their crossovers are Michigan State and Maryland. Like, there's no Michigan or Ohio State on there again. Like, so there's some possibilities there, and we saw what they did this past weekend. But I think every time we latch onto a team, they get beat.
Let me run through who these teams have, and I'm just going to give you the crossovers. I think you have nailed exactly how you need to look at this, because it feels like it's just a big pile of mess on one side, and it's just anyone could get anyone. So it's more just who has who has Rutgers in the crossovers and who has Ohio State in the crossovers. That literally might be what decides the division this year. Illinois with one loss right now. They get Michigan State at home. They have at Michigan. So you're losing at Michigan. Other than that, their chances are not that bad. Wisconsin has 2 losses. Michigan State and Maryland left from the East. That's not too bad. I don't think they're out of it. Nebraska with 1 loss at Michigan, the only challenging game they have left from the East. I mean, that's legitimately a possibility. Iowa has 2 losses. They have to play at Ohio State, so you figure that's a third. Minnesota has only 1 loss, but they do go to Penn State. That's going to be the whiteout game. But that's next week after, the sandwich game between Michigan and Ohio State for Penn State. So that's kind of a weird, almost home trap game spot for Penn State, like a weird sandwich game for them. You mentioned Illinois, and you mentioned Northwestern. They are at Maryland and Ohio State. That is, I'm right there with you. That is the only team you can rule out there. The one who I had just kind of is just sort of lurking there, and you look at their schedule, and it's like, Tony, let's talk about Purdue. 1 loss in the conference right now. They lost to Penn State opening weekend, and they have Indiana from the East, and that's the only. I mean, boy, Tony. I was mentally preparing myself for the Illinois game in Indianapolis, and now I'm kind of wondering, does Ohio State get Purdue in Indianapolis if they get to the Big Ten championship game? Because, boy, at Indiana, that's only 1 loss, and getting Indiana cross division, that seems like that's not a bad deal for them.
No, and the win at Maryland was good for them. Like, that was good job, like, all right, good job. Give those people a ribbon, that sort of thing. But they do have games at Wisconsin and at Illinois, so that kind of concerns me. But they're all toss-ups. Like, and trying to predict, well, I think this team is going undefeated at home the rest of the way out because nobody in division will beat them at home. Okay, try that out, see if it works for you. See if that plan actually works, because it doesn't. I'm thinking, like, I look at, Illinois, that win, that game at Michigan is going to be very difficult. I still think you might see Wisconsin back in there. Maybe some renewed energy. We saw the offense go crazy this past week, but I'm not going to have a team okay, now I'm all on board with Minnesota, or now I'm all on board with Iowa. I do think Wisconsin's road games, like at Northwestern, at Michigan State. Well, they already did the Northwestern, but they've got Michigan State. I think that's going to be an interesting test to see which of those 2 teams is still alive in terms of, like, not for a division or anything, but like physically living. Which of these 2 teams still has a pulse? And then later on the season in November, Wisconsin has games at Iowa and at Nebraska. And I don't think you can say, like, none of these games are unwinnable for the division. None of these road games are, like, so outrageous within the division. But, Tom, I don't know what the question was, and I don't think I answered it. But that's really the Big Ten West.
It really is. And I keep looking at this and thinking, well, I think I'm overlooking Minnesota. And then you look at Minnesota's schedule, and their remaining schedule is at Illinois, at Penn State, home for Rutgers, at Nebraska, home for Northwestern, home for Illinois, and at Wisconsin. That feels like you're getting your freebies at home, which you would much rather play at Rutgers and at Northwestern and get some of those others at home. This just feels like a division where it's like, boy, if someone wins this division with 3 losses, that's going to be a pretty good result for the Big Ten West. 3 conference losses, because some of these teams have non-conference losses too. Like, you could have an 8-4, maybe even a 7-5 team if you get into a weird, everyone is 5-4. You've got a 4-way tie for first at 5-4, and it goes down to the 5th tiebreaker or whatever it is. This is going to be a mess. Like, this really feels like this might legitimately be a real mess in the West. And you get a Big Ten championship game where the Eastern team is favored by 4 touchdowns, 24 points, something like that. I mean, Tony, I don't think they can go away with the divisional structure soon enough. Can you change that before December?
Well, Gene Smith, when I asked him a few weeks back, when would you like to change it? He said, tomorrow, basically. Let's do it now. And he's from the East. Imagine how quickly the West guys want to change it.
Yeah, that is going to be. I mean, this college football season is a spectacle, and you can take that in whatever way you want. I mean, I have always been someone who kind of enjoys the mess and the weirdness of college football, but man, there's some weird stuff going on this year. But it is, for Ohio State is so far so good, and we'll see how the Michigan Penn State game plays out this weekend, and then Ohio State's trip to Penn State in a couple weeks, and then Michigan coming to Columbus over Thanksgiving weekend. Should be a really fun back half of the Big Ten schedule. Hard to believe the regular season's already halfway over, but a lot of exciting football. Not always great football, but a lot of exciting football still to come this season. And what place better to experience all of that fun and all of that, well, interesting football than BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have a fantastic team of insiders: Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team. Mark Givler, Alex Gleitman, killing it on the recruiting beat. We've got Justin Whitlatch, Devin Radcliffe, and of course the great Ross Fulton killing it on the X's and O's. It is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have a lot of fun stuff coming later on this fall, in addition to the football games and all that fun stuff and the fun community. We had a call on Tuesday looking at some fun new features, or Monday looking at some fun new features that are coming at some point in the future. So you're going to want to sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.